What's going on, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know who it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by My Song Day Rock 2000 today, where we are unearthing the musical underground and bringing all these emerging bands in the scene today that are going to be the biggest bands in the 2020s and the 2030s to the podcast for in-depth interviews and for you to get in on them now before they get big, so you can have bragging rights to your friends saying, hey, I got in this band before they got big. Don't you want that? Yeah, I do too. Before we get started though, because today is Tuesday, August 11th, I got two things to say. One is a happy birthday to my grandpa who turns 92 today. I know you're not listening, but still I'm going to say it anyway. And go through the shameless plugs. As you guys know, if I had advertised, which I'm still working on right now, but I'm getting requests to do like things that really don't fit with what we're trying to do, so I have to turn them down. So please follow My Song Day Rock 2000 Day on places like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you do that, you will get the Song of the Day feature every single day. It's a new song for you to jam out to, and it's from emerging bands, it's from known bands. It will help you grow your love for music, fall in love with new bands, fall in love with older bands that you used to love. It'll be a great way to get connected to the community. And if you follow them anytime anything gets released on the YouTube channel, on the podcast, anything you'll find out there. Also on Instagram, we have our IGTV series, which is a Tuesday night series where we go behind the scenes with me and tell you everything that's happening here and some fun stuff like with the YouTube thing that we're doing now. And also the Wednesday night live streams every single Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central. It's a live stream where you can come, hang out with us, have a good time. We always have a great time. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel because not only does the Chord Progression Podcast live here, I should say, we put out videos every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Central. And the videos are ranged from like four things now. It's like the Kevin Figures Out videos where I figure out if I like a band or not that I'm really not that well known to. I also have these new ones that we're going to be really doing, which is focused on all the emerging bands in the scene because we're really doubling down on that, or I'm really doubling down on that. Then we also have our album reviews and then our yearly one. So beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year, year-end awards kind of stuff. And because the Chord Progression Podcast lives there, you can also listen to the Chord Progression Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Links in the description below for everything. But now let's get to the main part of the show. So you guys heard me talk about this guy named Joe, and he is part of the Kingdom Collapse Army Facebook group. And him and I got in contact. Him and I are Facebook friends, and he added me to two bands, fan groups. One was Another Day Dawns, which we had in the podcast, and now he added me to As Strange as Angels. And I listened to As Strange as Angels, and I really like their sound, especially their newest single, Never Broken. And I messaged him saying, hey, can we get you on the podcast? And guys, for the next like hour 15, hour 20, you're going to hear something absolutely incredible as I get to sit down with Norman, the lead singer from As Strange Angels, and we get to go through a number of things. We get to go through his inspiration, not only to start music, but also to get back in music and what inspires him today, especially driven by his son. And it's incredible for all you parents out there to listen to what he has to say because it is amazing. And then we also go through his inspiration for songs like Never Broken and Mirror Mirror. So you get an in-depth look at those songs as well. And then trust me, it's going to be all fun. You're going to really enjoy it. It's very inspirational, very fun. So please welcome Norman from As Strange as Angels. Are you guys ready? Because this is an incredible interview. So get ready. Are you ready? Let's go. Yeah. Well, friends and guys and girls, boys and girls. I forgot how I already intro this, but friends of the Chord Progression Podcast. I found this band from the same way I found another band called Another Day Dawns, where I was a part of the Kingdom Collapse fan group, and all of a sudden, one of the guys that's really big in there is apparently really big on not only Another Day Dawns fan group page, but also this one as well. And he added me to it, and I'm so glad he did because I got to listen to music, and I thought, you know what, let's get these guys on the podcast. And bing, bang, boom, here we are. So out of Dallas, Texas, please welcome Norman from the band As Strange as Angels. So Norman, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
What's up, brother? How you doing, man? I'm super pumped, dude. I heard nothing but great stuff, so I'm hoping it's all true.
You heard nothing but great stuff? Oh my God, I feel flattered. Who'd you hear great stuff from, though? That's the real question.
Joe being one of them.
Joe was the guy that added me to the group.
Joe, see what I'm saying, man? Joe's the jam, dude. Like if you've made it to Joe, because he's like the godfather in the scene right now. So if you've made it to Joe's radar, than your money, dude.
Yeah, because that's how I found out about him, was because he was part of the Kingdom Collapse group and helping them kind of get their song Uprise on Sirius XM Octane and get charted on the the hard rock charts for, I know it was at least 1 week. And then all of a sudden, like, because I was posting some stuff on there as well, just kind of adding to it. And all of a sudden I just seen him add me as a friend and then add me to 2 other groups as well. And out of both the groups, I got to interview one first, and you're the second. And I'm so glad. I'm going to keep hoping that he keeps like adding to it, because every band that I've had in contact with him has been awesome. So, I listened to your stuff and I think it was awesome as well. So I'm definitely 3 for 3 on this one.
Awesome, man. And the Kingdom Collapse dudes, man, those are our boys, dude. So it's all in the family.
Have you ever played with them before?
We have not. Their singer John and I have actually been talking about how to do something together. I mean, they're from San Antonio. We're from up here in Dallas. We've been trying to get real creative with our friends in Relent too. I don't know if you're familiar with them, and trying to maybe put something together, because all of us are featured on Sirius XM Octane right now. We're all doing the same thing. We're all from Texas. We're like, man, maybe we should do some kind of show like celebrating all that, or stream something and stream it at a drive-through, or do something online. I don't know, just something really cool, because we're all kind of banging it out at the same time. So I think that's super cool and super fun.
I have to ask Jonathan about that one, because that's going to be interesting to see if that actually comes into fruition, though. Because if that happens, just send me, like, if it's online or something, just send me the links for everything, because I'll post it all over every place that I got because of you guys, because it can collapse. And then what was the other band? Relent,
yeah, they're awesome too.
I think someone actually mentioned them to me beforehand, because I just got to check out something real quick, because I just want to see, because... Oh, no, it was a different band, because I've been making these YouTube videos called Kevin Figures Out. So it's basically bands that I really have no idea who they are up to this point. And I just like, okay, listen to their stuff. And I just do a deep dive into them and be like, okay, even if I might know them or not know them, do I like them or not? And just really go in deep on everything. And I've done a couple I've said yes to, a couple I've said no to, but I've never been like fully closing the door on somebody. So it's like, no, but it's like right now I don't like them, but I see where they're going, and I'm very interested in how they're going. But that was the only one I said that to was Poppy so far, because I know she's kind of gotten a little bit more in that metal realm as of late.
Poppy's wild, man. Poppy scares me, like freaks me out.
If it wasn't
legit, and I love it.
If it wasn't for the pandemic, I was actually going to go see her play live this upcoming when we're shooting this past Saturday, because she was going to be performing in Milwaukee, opening for the Deftones tour.
Like, oh, that's right. And see, and I love Poppy because like they did this theme song for an NXT wrestler who I'm a wrestling fanatic. So I actually saw him perform it live on like a pay-per-view or something, and I was like, this Poppy is out of control.
Wait, which wrestler was it? Because I know on multiple live streams that I've been on, because one of the guys that always pops in is a huge wrestling fan. He has his own wrestling podcast as well. And a couple of the independent wrestlers that have been on his podcast have jumped on my live stream as well to talk music with us, and they've brought that up as well. But I just can't remember who the name of the wrestler was that had it.
Yeah, it's a female wrestler. I can't think of her. As soon as we end this, watch it, it's going to hit me. But there was an NXT takeover pay-per-view. She's the women's champion right now, if that helps at all. Oriental, Asian, I don't understand the difference. But it's that girl, and they did a song and they did a live performance. So when she came out at the pay-per-view, the NXT takeover, it was just cool because the band was playing as she was coming out. Man, it was out of control.
I'm trying to look it up right now, and it looks like the name is Io Shirai or something like that.
Io Shirai?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I butchered that horribly. My bad, guys. My bad, everybody. I'm sorry.
That's what makes it difficult to remember, because I'm like, oh, what is your name?
Yeah, and I'm just looking like, oh, well, I guess I butchered that one. Oh, well, I always mess up something on the podcast, so that's how we're starting this one.
It's all good, man.
All right, but how about we jump into As Strange as Angels? So why don't you actually give yourself a full introduction to start this out so everyone knows who you are, what you do in the band. And I'm going to do the classic like grade school, high school thing and a little fun fact about yourself, because I've heard some really wacky things. Like one of the guys that I've talked to was the biggest YouTube star in Sweden before PewDiePie started.
Oh, wow. Let's see. Okay, my name is Norman Matthew of the Strangest Angels. I sing, play guitar, write the jams. My drummer is Michelle Graves. She's my partner in crime, who is not here tonight. Unfortunately, she's busy doing Michelle Graves things. And let's see. Fun fact about me. I am a huge fan of the show Eastbound and Down with Danny McBride, and I will watch every season over and over again because it comforts me at night when I go to sleep. How about that?
I don't blame you for that one, man. I do not blame you at all for that because that just sounds incredible.
Kenny Powers, man. I mean, he's an inspiration.
There's some guy I went to high school with. I swear to God, like the last 3 or 4 times for Halloween, he's gone as Kenny Powers.
Are you serious?
3 or 4 years straight.
Yeah, dude, what's up?
he plays semi-pro baseball, which is even more incredible. And he if he just puts on the wig, he has the look down. It's incredible.
That's awesome. That is awesome, man.
That's why I don't blame him for having that look.
Right.
It's kind of funny in the end, but that's just kind of how I see it, honestly. It's just, it makes me laugh. So let's actually jump into Strangest Angels. So how did this whole entire thing start for you? Because I was trying to find some things on you, and it looked like your first song that was on Spotify was in 2017. So I'm assuming this kind of started middle of the 2010s. So can you give me the full story? What happened with the beginning of As Strange as Angels?
Yeah, man. So I mean, I've been in music since I was 16, 17 years old. It's a family business, so to speak. My brother, played guitar for, I believe it's John Fogerty. He was in a band called the Nanos, Diamante. They were on tour with Breaking Benjamin. I've been in music. I had a developmental deal with Capitol Records when I was 19 years old. I mean, I've been doing it for, quite a while. Hence my gray is popping out now. We're trying to make them white so that I can have black and white like a skunk.
Oh, wow.
So I've been doing it. It's been my life, honestly. I mean, I've been on Warped Tour for, 6 and 7 years in a row. I was in another band called Never Enough with Keith and Trevor from these bands, 18 Visions and Throwdown. So, I mean, I've been doing it since I was, again, man, a teenager, and have just not stopped ever. So to get to As Strange as Angels, there was a lot of stuff before that. My band previous to As Strange as Angels was a band called Murder FM, and we toured with Deftones, Five Finger Death Punch, Rob Zombie, The Pretty Reckless. I mean, the Chord. I mean, which was a super cool show, by the way. Just one of the first shows was opening for Chord in our hometown of El Paso, because I'm not from Dallas, I'm from El Paso, and I moved to Dallas for love, and that didn't work out so well, but I got my little boy out of it. So that's all that matters. But so all of that led to As Strange as Angels, because Murder FM was, we were on a record cycle. We were on tour with Drowning Pool, and things were just going great. But my personal life, we were starting to run into some stuff. I was, about to have, go through a divorce, which my little boy was 2 at the time. And so that was really scary. And I needed to wrap my head around that because I wanted to be super dad. So I stepped away from music, for a couple of years, man. I mean, I produced for other artists and wrote for other artists, but as far as my own music was concerned, I just disconnected, man. I had been through the ringer at that point, easily 15 years. And so there's a part where you're just kind of like, man, I don't know that I got it in me anymore. And my little boy is the most important thing to me. And so that's all that really matters. Maybe I'll just, I'll change careers or something. I love doing hair. Maybe I'll be a hairstylist or something, I needed to feel different. And so I completely disconnected, I mean, I used to crank tunes in my car all the time. And now I was jamming podcasts. I was have you seen, I think it's Geico, I forget. There's a commercial where it's teaching you to not become your parents or something. You know what I mean? I was that dude, man. I'm driving in my car, listening to podcasts, just whatever, because I just needed to feel different. Again, I've been playing music since I was 5 and professionally actually since I was 13. So I really knew no other life. And I was let me try and do something different. But in the process of it, something really changed in me. I felt if I was going to do music again, I wanted to reinvent myself. I wanted it to be a chance to do a bunch of different things, because my little boy was playing drums and he was like, "Daddy, get your guitar and play with me." And I was when I did that, it reconnected me to music, because I was wow, there's this whole side of my son that of his father that he's never experienced. And you know what, man? I want to share that with him. I want to take him on tour. I want him to be on the side of the stage with me. I want him to see, his dad's songs, if they do, make a difference in someone else's life. And even more importantly, I want to teach him to not give up on his dreams and not give up on himself, So As Strange as Angels became this whole thing that was more than just about the music. It was about, reinventing yourself, getting second chances in life, even if it's you giving them to yourself. You know what I mean? Just being like, you know what? I'm going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and let's go, And I mean, in that process, even just getting to the songs, it was like I played guitars. If I had played a guitar before and wrote a song on it, I didn't touch it because I wanted a completely different juju. I lost, 30 pounds. I grew my hair out because I'd had all these crazy mohawks. I was like, let's do something different. Like if I wore black all the time, let's wear white all the time. Like if I never use color, let's get some pink shirts going on. If I've always been clean shaven, let a beard grow, cut half the side of my hair. I don't know. It was just like anything to be different. And in that process, man, that's when the music started coming out. So we dropped the Waves in 2017. And that was just kind of me dipping my big toe back into the music world. You know what I mean? I didn't know, essentially, I mean, when you step out of the industry, man, like you're kind of forgotten in a lot of ways because the industry, maybe not by people who are fans of your work, but the industry evolves so much. You know what I mean? It's like being a pro athlete. If you're out sidelined with an injury for a season, you're like, that dude's done. You know what I mean? Kenny Powers. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, like, when you're talking about pro athletes, kind of like, when they tear their ACLs or something, they're out for the year. It's like all of a sudden you're looking back and you're thinking, well, at least 10 years ago, you're looking back and thinking, this guy is done. He's not coming back because that's a horrible injury to come back from.
Yeah.
And you get the very, very rare occasion where someone comes back from an injury or someone comes back from having to be away from the, from the game or from something that they're doing for some time and coming back and then not only picking up where they left off, but accelerating. I think probably the prime example of that, especially when you're talking about pro athletes, is from like a devastating injury. I think the prime example is Adrian Peterson from when he tore his ACL and then almost broke the rushing record the next year. As you can tell, my fandom for the Minnesota Vikings is coming out just a little bit right there.
I love that, man.
But overall, I mean, that's an incredible story that you're telling because
Thank you, Ben.
You've been in music for so long and all of a sudden you're going through different things in your personal life and you're trying to figure out what to, like, maybe try something different. And all of a sudden, it's your son having a love for music and wanting to play with you. And I mean, playing probably like on a little drum kit. I can kind of imagine it right now because I used to drum when I was a kid, but kind of got out of it to play soccer instead. Not the best move in retrospect, maybe, but especially what I'm doing now, but whatever. If I probably didn't do that, might not have led me to where I am today. But the fact that your son at 3 years old was playing drums and wanted you to jam with him. And that just reignited everything in you. Not only does that give you just a whole entire just rejuvenation in life, but it just gives you a new outlook as well, because you have your son looking up to you and he's looking up to you in the way that you're doing what you love. So just the inspiration that's going to be coming off of that is incredible. I mean, from my perspective as well, it's like with my dad, it's, ever since I was like in 6th, 7th grade, all of a sudden, like he would always work just like these weird hours. Well, always work second shift. So I never really got to see him. And then all of a sudden was working third shift for some point. So like two years. So the sleep schedule was off. It was kind of weird. And then all of a sudden my brother was in high school. I was about to go into high school and he picked up a second job as well, just to bring in more money. And it was just that consistent work ethic that all of a sudden we never really brought it up, but my brother and I just understood it. And it was just such an inspiration just going forward in life. It's like, well, if my dad's going to work this hard and if he's going to show us this, why can't we do the same? Like, it's inspiring to see that. And then on the flip side, all of a sudden your son's inspiring you. And then by the end of it, I mean, he's going to grow up seeing you doing exactly what you want to do and making your dreams your reality to the point where he's going to be able to think, if he puts in the work, puts in the time, and goes balls to the wall with what he wants to do, he's going to make it happen.
Yeah, man. And that was, what connected all that. A big part of that too was that I was like, you know what? I have different things that I want to say with my music now. You get some grays in you again, and you start thinking, man, I got to use these powers for good, not evil. I've got to right some wrongs, and I've got to, make amends in a certain way. Not that there was anything to really make amends with, just like you're like, maybe some of my own struggle I can write about, but generalize so that other people have some songs to listen to that get them in their feels that they can connect to. Right. So it's not all about just like having a good time, which I love. And it's not all about like, just kind of like being on your ego riser of like, for me, look at me, like we're so awesome, put on a show. I was like, man, we got to add something special on top of that too. And, for example, a song like Never Broken, it's about overcoming and tackling obstacles and adversity in your life. And it's about coming out on top of it. And it's about, doing it as positively as you can, if that makes, any sense, instead of just, burning everything to the ground or going, no, man, I'm going to bring it, and I'm going to confront this head on and overcome it. And, just being able to be in a different place lyrically, I think spiritually to a certain degree, having a completely different outlook on music and my goals and objectives with it was another thing too, because it was like, hey man, if I'm going to do this again and do it, again, like Kenny Powers going for the majors, I'm not going to be weak in the way that I do it, and I'm going to come on full force, or else there's no reason to be doing it, because I shouldn't be taking up the space. I shouldn't be taking up the opportunities for other artists that could have these opportunities, unless I'm willing to like really, really deliver something good that even, my peers can be fans of, So there was a lot going on for me and a lot that I wanted to like prove.
And that's completely understandable as well. Taking a look at some other people in the scene as well, especially people that I really kind of follow and listen to, that as they've gone through, as they've gone through life, how their music has changed since they've had, they've had children, how being a father has inspired them. And two prime examples I think of is, one is probably my favorite lead singer, my favorite like band of all time, Tim McElrath from Rise Against. And
yes,
since he's been a parent and has had kids, I've seen his lyrics just become more elaborate and really focusing on a couple of other things as well, instead of focus. And like when he's focusing on social issues, it's focusing more on the future aspect and how it's going to impact future generations, instead of just talking about what's happening right now. So he's really starting to think about that. And then another one, which at first some people might be thinking it's kind of weird, but it actually fits, is Ronnie Radke of Falling in Reverse. Because since he had his daughter, he's been brought, I mean, his music has still gone hard as all hell, but he's openly talking about the stuff that he's gone through. And instead of saying like, this is who I am, if you don't like it, screw you. It's like, yes, I do have issues. I do have problems, and I am trying to fix those, but still be the person I am. However, I realize that I still have a daughter involved. I want to be the best father I can for her at the same time as well. And just that inspiration behind it is all. I mean, it's created some incredible music from those guys, and especially hearing the stuff that you have with As Strange as Angels, from what I've heard and what I really dove deep into, it has that same feel as well, where the intricacies are a lot more pronounced, and it just seems like there's a lot more, there's a good amount of inspiration there from that moment when you decided to get back into it because your son said, Dad, I've got my drumsticks, come play guitar with me.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what happens with a lot of artists, and I could be wrong, on this one, but I know for me, and I have a lot of friends who are in the industry that have become artists as well as that, or that have become parents, and that are artists as well, is when you have a child, right? Like when you become like a dad or a mom or something, but I'll speak to the dad side of it, because that's what it is for me. There is some innate thing that like just kicks in you, that like changes you. There's an old saying that's sins of the father fall on the son. Your head just goes, you completely like switch. And maybe even things that you were scared of to say before, because you thought like someone might poo-poo it or think that it's stupid or whatever, that you would be self-conscious about, just aren't that anymore. And you're able to be so extremely open in a way that like, 22-year-old Norman's ego wouldn't have allowed him to be, because that's not cool. You know what I mean? But now it's like, I've been covered in baby snot and cleaning poopy diapers and doing they kind of like talking about that now. It's like, it's because it's real talk. So it's funny. You know what I mean? You hit this realness that I guess you don't realize when you're younger. You know what I mean? It's like, I've got to have this really cool image and be super cool and this and this. And now it's funny to be like, hey, so, the other night my son was watching Paw Patrol and he fell asleep, and I kept watching the show because I really wanted to know if the Paw Patrol was going to save the day. I was genuinely concerned, right? What is wrong with me? You would think someone would laugh at you if you ever said that. Now I'm like, bro, if you're not there yet, you're going to be there eventually one day. You'll get it. You know what I mean? It's almost the equivalent to like when you hear elderly people like talking trash or something and you think it's funny and you're like, that's awesome, because you know what? We're all heading that direction. They've just reached that point of being able to have some realness to yourself that I think when we're, I know for me as an artist growing up, I wanted to create this persona. The persona was what was important, and I had to be super cool and have everyone think that I'm super cool. You know what? Now I think it's cool that people know that I like to be in pajamas by 8:00. How about that? That's cool. That's rock star, baby.
Yeah. You like to be in pajamas by 8:00 and watching Paw Patrol with your son as well. And a couple,
right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things on that too. I love how you're talking about like when you're looking at the elderly and like when they just kind of don't care anymore and just kind of like just go on rants as well. Yeah, I kind of can feel that. That's what, like when I was up north, my grandpa just point blank told me that I was not his favorite grandchild, just point blank out of nowhere. However, my response was, is it my older brother, right? And he just like, oh yeah. I just looked and I said, oh, I know. That was it. And the funny thing is like, that is something that I've known for a long time. And I'm just surprised he blatantly said it out of nowhere. But then on top of it as well, when you're talking about with just kind of just having this changing of mindset and changing persona and just changing of priorities when you become a dad and just how that kind of influences your music as well. Take a look at a band like Asking Alexandria, where you take a look at their debut record. I mean, it was metalcore to the bone. And then on their latest record, it was a lot softer, a lot different. And while I wasn't a big fan of it at all, I took a look into it a little bit deeper. And the reason why they kind of changed their sound to be a lot lighter is because they don't really associate with that harder sound anymore. And they don't want to make music like that. They want to make music like they did on their last record, like A House on Fire. And I think they want to connect more with people that are in the same realm as them, is because I think a lot of them are family men now. So it's a different perspective on life that it has given them a different sound and a different state of priorities, which it seems like since you've had your son has done the same for you, as you just spoke about.
Yeah, it does, man. And I mean, I think a lot of artists, when there's something like, I'm okay if people who are fans of any of the work and the bands I've been in before aren't a fan of this, because I'm like, you know what? I'm just trying to evolve. I'm trying to do something different, and I'm trying to grow. And maybe you're not like where I am in that spot, and that's okay, but there's other people that have been super fans that I'm so incredibly thankful for, that have grown with me over the years. You know what I mean? That they were, when I was 19, they were 22, and they were fans of the music that I was kicking out. And now, they're fans of what I'm doing now because they still get it. Like there's still that connection, right? It's like, I shouldn't be trying to create something that, I did 12 years ago, right? You know what I mean? It's like, I should be creating music of where I'm at now. And, and that's the dice that you roll when you're like, some people might like it, some people might not like it, some people get it, they might not, but at least you're taking a step forward with your, artistic integrity and going, well, this is what I feel like doing. So take it or don't, And I think that's the part about the parent, when you get older, or not necessarily older, because people can be young parents. So just when you become a parent and your life gets consumed by your child, you suddenly you have to cut out all the BS in your life, which is why you have to get to the point. You know what I mean? Like my mom says funny stuff all the time. She's like, dude, I'm getting older. I don't want to waste my breath on mincing words. Let's just get to it, So kind of like your so it's the same thing being a parent. You're like, man, I don't even have enough time to explain this to you right now. Just, this is what's happening. Boom, done. Okay, moving on. You know what I mean? And I think that's what happens with the music, like you're like, let's just get to the meat of the matter.
Exactly. And one thing I like what you said too was just when you have fans that like your older stuff, but then they might not like the newer stuff, just with a different perspective on it. I mean, that's like what I brought up with Asking Alexandria, where I like their older stuff a lot more than their newer stuff. However, it's something where it's like I went to the album keeping an open mind. There's certain aspects I kind of liked about it, but for the majority of it, it's just not for my taste. And when I did the album review, I did put that out there where it just wasn't for my taste completely. So I totally understood. I totally understood the move though, especially when I dove deeper into it to see why they kind of changed their sound the way they did. However, one thing I've always spoken about as a fan of music is for the artists, always write what you want to write and talk about what you want to talk about and perform the style that you want to perform, because when it's coming from your truth, what's going to happen is you're going to put more of yourself into it. You're going to have more of a connection to it. And even as a listener, you're going to feel you're going to feel like you put out everything in that record. It's going to feel so much more genuine. And even if it's for a sound that maybe we don't necessarily like as a fan, like doesn't necessarily line up with what they like. However, the message might just hit them in a certain way where all of a sudden it's like, well, you know, I'm a lot more of a hardcore guy. I like hardcore punk. I like metalcore, that kind of stuff. All of a sudden you hear an alternative track that doesn't really align with your, like what you like. However, just the message hits you in some kind of a way because the artist is speaking about a time in their life when something happened and you as a listener can really relate to it on a whole different level. I mean, there's going to be a connection there, and it's all going to be because as an artist, you were talking about something that was completely genuine to yourself.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's you can't just do what you think is cool because you're going to miss the mark. And, you know, people can't feel what doesn't have feeling. That's why there's those songs that will jump out of nowhere. You know, you're like, it's not even in your wheelhouse, but you're like, oh, I feel it. You know, the same reason that like a band like Nirvana, like changed the game for so many people generations later now too, where you're like, they weren't doing at that time what was cool. Like, by any stretch of the imagination, but the feeling behind it, just like, I mean, I must have been like in third or fourth grade or something when they came out. But even like being that young, because I was into music, like I felt the jolt of that realness. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I don't even know I love this. I just do. Guns N' Roses was a band like that for me too, that it was like, they were so like gritty and in your face, against the grain of what was going on. That's what I liked. And that's, you know, that for me is what I'm doing for Strange as Angels. Like, we're not like in your face like that, but you know, we have our own thing going on in our own movement of like, I'm going against the grain because I'm not necessarily trying to fit in. I want to carve my own path. You know what I mean? And whatever results out of that is going to be, like, I want to be proud of that because I was at least trying to make my own way, you know, and that's a message to people that I like to give. And that's a message that I want to leave, you know, for my son too, like carve your path and make your mark, however big it's going to be. And so I think that translates well to like audiences because you can hear it, you know, like my voice is different. Like I don't have like a metal rock guy, gravelly, like voice, you know, it's my blessing and my curse. You know what I mean? It's like, some people just don't like it and it doesn't fit when you're hearing the heavy riff. And then other people are like, it's fresh and new and different. And this is what I love about it. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to worry about the people that don't like it. I'm trying to worry about everyone that does. Cause I really do want to like shoot down the middle. You know what I mean? Do my own thing.
Understandable. And then this is a little like tidbit for your son if he ever ends up listening to this too. It's just kind of what you're talking about with kind of going against the grain and just focusing on what you want to do and kind of letting everything else play out as it is. And just letting people, if they like your music, come to you. If they don't like it, don't worry about them. Like even for myself, when I was growing up, like I went from one grade school to another. And then like I was in middle school at this place and it was just, I was always trying to, I didn't get, like, I really wasn't fitting in very well. So I was just trying to do my most to listen to the music that everyone else listened to, wear the clothes everyone else was listening to. And then it was thankfully for Guitar Hero. I mean, that kind of changed the whole entire game for me because everyone was listening to stuff like, it was like, oh, Justin Timberlake, Akon, Kelly Clarkson, Beyonce, yay. And then all of a sudden I'm playing Guitar Hero and I really, and I was at a Catholic school too, mind you. And I really got into Disturbed. Now that took a whole nother like change. And everyone kind of got concerned for me. The kids were really like, oh my God, he likes this stuff. Some of the teachers were like, one of the teachers wrote a note to my mom saying like, he's listening to like some horrible music. Do you know about this? And my mom sent the letter back saying, yeah, I bought him both CDs because I had the 10,000 Fists CD and the Indestructible CD. I'm just like, yeah. And because of that, then all of a sudden, like, I'm getting into high school as well. It's like, now I'm listening to more punk rock. I really got into Rise Against, and that's never stopped since. And then I was starting to get into so much more music, and I kind of just didn't care about listening to what everyone else was listening to. I just wanted to listen to what I wanted to listen to, because that's what I want to do. That's what made me happy. That's what was my truth. So it was just like going against the grain and going my own path was the way to go. And that's kind of what led me here. Going your own path is what led you to where you are today. So for your son, it's follow your path, follow your truth, and you will get to where you want to go as long as you work your ass off to get there.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff along the way to derail you, and that's part of it too. You've got to just, again, what Never Broken is about, there's going to be so many things on your path in life that are going to throw you off, mess you up, forces against you, if you will. But you got to plow through them, man, because you only plow through that much stronger, and it's such a cliche saying, but I have firsthand experienced that all the things that have thrown at me, like once some of these bad things have happened in my life, I'm kind of like, I'm still here. And I'm like, yeah, I'm still here, boy. It's like, what is going to take me down? You know what I mean? This is great. And I'm grateful for it. I'm not like showing off. I'm just like, wow, that saying is so true. And like, it inspires you to even get like more and more, like, I guess for me, positivity out of it, right? Like I want to, instead of being like, check me out, I want to show people like, man, we can do it, and we can do it without having to do it at the expense of other people. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
So I'm just on this crazy mission right now.
Yeah, I'll say that does make sense. And no wonder why I kind of connected with Never Broken in a different way as well, because when you're talking about how things come at you in life and all of a sudden you can go through some horrible times, like, but after you go through some crazy thing, like what you went through with your divorce, and all of a sudden having to raise your kid on your own as well. And all of a sudden you're kind of touching, and you're like, hey, I'm still here. What's going on? And it just kind of builds. It's kind of like that. What doesn't kill you make you stronger. Again, another cliche, but I can attest to that as well, because the whole reason I started this podcast, this project, everything about it, was because I went through this insane amount of depression, suicidal tendencies, attempted a couple of times, and I've spoken about it before, so I'm a little bit more comfortable just kind of bringing it up at times. But if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for that, all of a sudden I wouldn't have had the idea of, okay, let's create something for myself, because that's what's going to make me happy. What's the one thing that's making me happy that got me through that whole entire depressive state? It was, I was always listening to Rise Against. I was always listening to Skillet. I was always listening to older 30 Seconds to Mars. I'm like, I love the music so much. So let's get even. By the way,
my little boy loves Skillet, and I'm a super fan of 30 Seconds to Mars. So that's kind of crazy you said that.
Well, the reason I said is because like Rise Against, again, like I said, favorite band. When I said Skillet, it was just, I like a Skillet from Comatose on, and their song Not Gonna Die was like the driving force for me just to not stop. And then older 30 Seconds to Mars, like that, I'm talking about their original album, A Beautiful Lie, and then This Is War. Like it hit me in such a different way, where it just kind of was like kept me going. So then 2018, I was actually at Camp Mars in Malibu, and then last year I was at Mars Island in Croatia, and I've got the little profile picture I have up on the Zoom thing, if you can somehow see it, it's me with Jared and Shannon Leto.
That's awesome. See, and what's crazy is the first single we put out, Waves, was heavily, heavily inspired by 30 Seconds to Mars. If you go back and listen to it, I mean, there's bits and pieces of everything, that band does that I loved. One of the things I loved about it, and that connected me with that band, was that, Jared Leto, like me, had been in the industry, even though he was in a TV and like movies and stuff before his band stuff. He started super young. Like I connected to that. He got his start with 30 Seconds later on, like in his career. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't a spring chicken when Jared Leto was trying to do it. You know what I mean? And to own, and his brother too, Shannon. I mean, they wanted to do music. Jared got into acting because he wanted to afford to do music. And then a lot of people will say, well, he was already famous. And you're like, not really, man. Like there's a lot of artists who are actors that can't make that transition to music because the audience feels like it's not real, right? You know what I mean? It's like, it's this weird thing that we somehow, like as fans, like to go for the underdog, right? And it was like, oh, Jared Leto's like, he's an actor, he's famous, he's this and this. I'm like, that dude has had to fight and claw his way like through music. And people knew him, and people wanted him to fail, and people didn't want it to be good, and his own record company was against him. You know what I mean? And it was like that band just kept going and going. And there's this like realness in it for me. So like that was actually one of the bands that I really heavy got into when we started this band. Because I loved that they were doing something different than everything else.
Yeah.
You know
and if
what
you
I mean?
Understand, well, if you notice on the back wall too, I'll kind of tip my camera up just a little bit. There's an American flag there, but then it kind of blacks out in the middle and has their like the triad logo
I saw
in there.
That, dude. I was like, yeah, buddy.
Yeah, I made that and took it to and took it to Mars Island in Croatia. So in the picture they kind of cut it out, but I was holding it up. And when I was leaving because it was like a little like a meet and greet photo because I had the perfect lighting for it. As I'm walking off, all of a sudden I hear Jared Leto say, "Hey man, dude, I absolutely love the flag," and just kind of was like, "All right." As weird as I could, as I'm like wearing like sunglasses, a Rise Against t-shirt. Like everyone else is wearing like all this like nice stuff. Here I'm in a Rise Against t-shirt. Like I was the total black sheep when I was there of the whole entire crowd, but it was awesome being that person.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's cool. You got to experience that, man. I've never actually been able to see them live, which is a shame, you know. And I've been able to make friends with like Tomo through other mutual friends of ours, but still never been able to see them live.
Yeah, I've seen him like in those like camp settings, like 2 concerts per the time I went. So I've seen him a total of 4 times or 5 times. I saw him at when was it? It was the iHeartRadio Music Festival 2017 because I was in Vegas during that time. My aunt and uncle got tickets for both nights, and my brother wanted to go the first night because he's like, "Oh, I want to kind of go see Coldplay." I'm like, "Okay, I'll go." And I'm looking at the list. I'm like, "Yeah, first night's good because 30 Seconds to Mars was playing." I'm like, "I'm in for that. Let's go."
They're out of control good too live, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I got mad love for that band. Sorry, we went off on that tangent, but I love that, man.
I love going off on tangents, but let's jump back into Never Broken because I always want to talk about at least some kind of the music, especially wanting to keep respect to your time as well. So I want to jump into Never Broken as well because overall, out of all the songs that you had and all the ones I really listened to and were able to dive deep into, Never Broken was my favorite out of all of them. So awesome. I kind of want to go into that one and taking a listen to it, like listening to the intro, you kind of had this like slower, more lower tune guitar leads into like a harder riff. And I'm a big fan of the harder style as I grew up like listening to 80s rock with my dad. So kind of that like more upbeat tempo was there. And then with the harder style, I'm a big hard rock guy, punk rock guy. And then ever since the beginning of 2019 with when someone said, listen to Motionless in White and see if you like it, that jumped me into metalcore. So, I'm That's kind of awesome. All of that harder stuff. So listening to that with kind of going like a harder sound on this song, it really stuck out to me personally. Again, this is kind of my take on it though, because I'm a fan of the music. So I have certain tastes and I always try and look for certain, even if it doesn't fit with my taste though, I always try and find certain things that I like about it. So I have other songs where it's like, okay, that necessarily fits in my taste personally, but there are bits and pieces of these songs. I'm like, okay, As Strange Angels, I messed that up. As Strange Angels really has something going on here.
Awesome. Thank you.
So when it comes to the verses, like, again, I just go through deep dive in these. Like it kind of started more rather alternative with some electronic influences. And personally, you know me, I'm like, oh man, I kind of want to go with that harder stuff like you kind of started out with. But then all of a sudden, halfway through, you started bringing back the harder instrumentation, the down 2 guitars, the faster drumming, and then listening to the whole entire verse together once that happened. I really liked it because it gave the song the harder feel, but then the way it was transitioned between that alternative inspired style into something more like hardcore, it worked out so well just how slowly it built into it. So I was just like, all right, yeah.
That's awesome, man. You know, in that verse too, you know, again, that's a tip of the hat to, you know, a band like 30 Seconds to Mars. You know, it's like, let's take some chances. What am I serving an audience if I'm serving them the same exact thing as another artist, only my version of it, right? So whenever there's little spots for me to take chances, I want to take those chances, you know, knowing that you're like, wow, this might not go over really well, or this might be really cool. And I'm willing to roll the dice on that one because I'd love to see, you know, that I was able to bring something different to the table. You know what I mean? And plus, like, I'm a big fan of like that ride. I love feeling like when I heard a song, like I went through a scene in a movie. You know what I mean? Where you're just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. whew, that's cool.
Exactly. And it's like, and I get you're going to end up taking influences from what you listen to. And I always speak about that as well with artists, because especially with bands as well, because everyone in a band, they're all going to have different things they listen to. They're going to have different influences. But if you're going to be able to bring certain tropes, those influences in your music, you're going to create your own sound out of it. Because say someone, because I'll use a punk band called Rejuvenating. They're out of New York City. They play hardcore punk, but then listen to so many other things. Like they have like that old kind of like Motown funk in some of their songs. Sometimes they feel like, you're listening to like something like Dead Kennedys. All of a sudden it's like punk meets Enter Sandman. Rebelmatic.
I gotta check them out.
I know they got a new album coming out end of August on the 28th. So, and on my page as well, like if you keep up with it, if you end up keeping up with our page, like on the 28th, you'll find out when it comes out, because I'm going to end up doing something with them as well. But
awesome.
Kind of like, I like what you're saying, like when you're able to like take those chances and then go on, like have a song feel like you're going on a ride as well. Because if you take those chances, there's times they're going to work out, there's times they're not going to work out. But if you take chances, all of a sudden you're going to end up creating something that you never know, like just take off out of nowhere. And a song that kind of has that ride and just chances. And after I heard it was sat back in my chair and I'm like, did I just listen to that? And I just experienced that? Was the first time I listened to Popular Monster by Falling in Reverse, because it was just
nice.
All the different things that were going on there. It's just like, how the hell did he make that work?
Yeah, I mean, there's Bring Me the Horizon, Parasite Eve. You know what I mean? That song is like, what just happened in 3.5 minutes? And that's what I'm saying. I love that kind of stuff where it's like, even if I'm a fan of an artist and it kind of misses the mark for me, is like my expectation of that artist, right? Where it doesn't miss the mark for me is that, like, I am so damn proud of those dudes or girls or, whoever's in the band. I'm so damn proud of that band for being willing to take that chance. So I get excited on a different level. Like when I heard Popular Monster, when I heard Parasite Eve, it was like, dude, like at first you're like, not what I was ready for. And then you give it the second listen and you're like, dude, now I can't get enough of it. You just didn't know you wanted it because you had never heard it before.
Yeah. And another song like that too, that was from this year that I can add to it, is a song called Above My Head by Polaris, because just the ride it takes on, especially lyrically, because it talks all about going through depression. It basically like described what I went through to a T. So I was just like, how did you know?
There's another song that's like that for me. Bad Flower, their new single 30.
Oh
like
yeah. I just listened to that.
That's what I'm saying about when you hit that certain point in your life of you're just like, you know what? This wouldn't have been funny 20 years ago. Now it's too awesome because it's all too real.
Yeah.
And those of us that get it, and we're like, woo! That song jams.
Oh, yeah. And now I kind of want to jump back into Never Broken, because we're talking about that ride. And then all of a sudden, like with the verse, you kind of start that more alternative electronic sound, and then you kind of build up to a harder sound. You get to the chorus and it's just built with this great hard rock instrumentation through and through, because you kind of slow up the pace versus what you kind of ended the verses with. But it just sounded just as hard as well. And I love to see this because it brings kind of all those influences together full circle. And it just kind of is a great transition through and through. So the instrumentation on this one, from listening to it, especially from my taste as well, like I absolutely loved how this track was built. It was actually like what brought me into your band in the first place, after Joe like added me onto the fan group. I'm like,
that's awesome, man.
I got to listen to the music first. And boom.
and those are my boys, Chris Dawson and Jimmy Beatty, man, like helping me put this track together, dude, and producing it. They did an awesome job. And we were all on the same page of, let's do something different, man. Let's capture some lightning in a bottle. Driving up to the studio, I was like, ooh, like we didn't even really know exactly what we were going to do, but we knew we wanted to do something that was going to just kind of get all of us like, wow, that's different and that's cool. And, and that's the theme that we stuck with, man. Like just lay it down and see what it sounds like,
Yeah, and now I got to ask you about the vocals on this one as well, because before I go into what I thought about the vocals, how did you write the vocal pattern for the song?
I listen to a lot of like all kinds of stuff, man. I've noticed lately a lot of like pop stuff just like gets into my brain. The phrasing, and part of the reason of that is because I have sung a certain way for so long. I mean, I press consonants a certain way. I land notes. I mean, I've literally studied my own vocal, and I'm like, I land certain words and certain phrases and move certain notes that part of starting the Strangest Angels thing was that if I was going to evolve as a singer, I can't change my voice, right? Like as a guitarist, I can change my effects. As a drummer, I mean, we can even be like, hey, let's play drums, but then let's program it to sound like pots and pans and cows mooing. I mean, whatever we want. You know what I mean? Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters can go from playing drums to playing guitar, and he's instantly different. But to go from being a singer in bands to going, I'm going to start my solo project and be a singer and a guitar player, I'm like, I can't really change who I am. So the only way I was able to do that was by listening to a ton of different things, to be perfectly honest, like pop, country. I mean, just anything to give me a different way of like phrasing in the typical way that I already knew. You know what? I don't have what is an expected metal voice, harder rock per se. So why in the world should I phrase it in that same manner? Like while we're at it, let's just do it all different. You know what I mean? Let me take a page from my boys and, Chester Bennington and Jacoby from Papa Roach, who have different voices, and go, you know what? Let's just throw it on the wall and do something different, man. So all of it was really, I wouldn't say like inspired by like, country and pop. It's just the directive was, let's land my notes in different places, right? If I sing on 2 and 4, let's sing on 1 and 3. If I sing la, let's go la, just to be different, man.
Understand. I got to give you just like a couple minutes to kind of run through this because it all makes sense when I bring it through. So I actually I was actually watching a video today on YouTube from Finn McKenty from the Punk Rock MBA because he was listening. He was like going through like viewer comments again. And I'm like, okay, I just kind of want to see what he says. Mostly because, well, the one thing that drew me into that was because he made a whole video about Ronnie Radke, and Ronnie Radke reacted to it on his Twitch channel. And they're asking him if he saw it and whatnot. And I mean, it was pretty good. So I wanted to see what else they had as well besides that. And someone asked him like, okay, what would you be your suggestion when it comes to trying to like amp up your songwriting, amp up everything that kind of just stand out? And one thing that Finn kind of added was take a listen to things other than what you're listening to right now. Mm-hmm. And like take a listen, like even like stuff that's on like pop radio, stuff you might not even care to listen to, but take a look at like their vocal patterns, what they're exactly doing in certain aspects, because then you can potentially implement into your song and have stronger songs, stronger choruses. So where I kind of look at that was one thing that I kind of like to see in music is, especially if you're taking different influences, is when you're writing a vocal pattern, when you're listening to the vocals, let the instrumentation guide you and let that happen. So you're not trying to like write against it, even though sometimes you can contrast styles and they work out real well. But there's times where you kind of want to just, okay, this is what the instrumentation is calling for my vocal pattern to be. Let's just ride the wave on that and let's do it, even if I'm not the most comfortable with it. And on this song, I mean, when it comes to Never Broken, you did exactly that. Because what I have written here, you have you basically following what the instrumentation is calling for and just amplifies the instrumental work. Because in those first part of the verses, when you have like the more alternative electronic style, it kind of calls for softer vocals, and you provide that as well. That helps amplify a different sound to the whole entire thing. All of a sudden it gets harder. Your vocals get a little bit rougher and are brought out more with the emotion that's felt when you listen to the song. And this is one thing that I absolutely really love, and I have to applaud you for, because it's what the instrumentation is bringing out and what the emotion is needed to kind of amplify that. You're doing the exact same thing, and what you're doing is you're working off of each other between the instrumentation and your vocals. It's kind of like, if you're at a concert and all of a sudden you're amped up and you're trying to give that energy to the crowd, and the crowd's getting amped up as well, and all of a sudden their energy is outdoing yours, and then they're giving you the energy, and it just keeps going back and forth. So all of a sudden everyone's going absolutely crazy, and then someone ends up with a giant cut above their eye because they went too hard in the mosh pit. That would be me. But
that's the way.
but in the end, what ends up happening is you just get the song that has so much emotion in there because you're following exactly what the instrumental that you wrote is calling for, and you're bringing out all the emotion that you want to in this song. So overall, when it comes to Never Broken, this is exactly what I wrote for my whole entire synopsis, because I always like to do a little overall thing. Overall, this is my favorite track out of the bunch. While the band uses their alternative rock bass in the verses, I am seeing some more hard rock and metal influences drop throughout the song. And I gotta say, the transition works between the styles because they're able to write and use an exact same kind of emotion in the tone of the instrumentals as with the vocals. And your vocals amplify the connection. It is well done.
Awesome, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. Like, I really, really do. You know what I appreciate about that? That you took the time to listen. and really listen with like, for all the work like an artist can put into a song, like someone can brush it by in 3 minutes. And it's crazy to think like, man, we put months of our heart and soul in, sacrifice time with families or friends or doing something fun, right, to create this song. And you listen to 45 seconds of my song and decided you didn't like it or whatever, you know what I mean? So the fact that you do that, not only for me, but for other bands, dude, like I applaud you. So thank you, man. Thank you very much.
Well, that means a lot to. I'll say that means a lot to me as well, because every time for every artist that I've interviewed or every album that I've ever reviewed, this is how I've done it. Is I'll listen to the album or the song like once or twice through just so I understand it and I kind of get that initial feeling of it. Then I'll listen to it again and really try and figure out my ideas on the instrumentals, and I'll listen again, get my ideas on the vocals, and then bring it all together, because there's always so much going on that over time, especially if bands release singles for albums, and I get to listen to the singles a lot more and more. Like when I'm end up reviewing Corey Taylor's solo project album in the beginning of October when it comes out.
Right.
Like I've listened to CMFT Must Be Stopped a good amount of times already, and there's so much going on in that song as well. Like Here Comes Rap Rock. Oh shoot, there goes your video. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it was about to. Yeah, it's a battery 20%.
Oh, okay. But it's just like all of a sudden, holy crap, here comes all this stuff going on. And I'm listening. It's like, at first I'm like, oh, it's rap rock. Okay, let's see how this kind of turns out. All of a sudden, listening like 2 or 3 times, and you're like, okay, this actually really works. Holy shit.
Right. Man,
So
thank you so much, dude. I got to say, man, if there was more peeps like you loving music the way you do, the scene would be in amazing shape.
We got to get not only more people like me to be doing something like really going deep into music and just basically bringing it back up, but kind of the big guys in the scene right now to do the exact same thing as well and really dive deep into everything. And just,
man.
even if there's something that really doesn't follow in with your taste exactly, just see if there's something out there that you might like, because you never know. Just giving a positive about a song that you maybe don't really like, but all of a sudden it's like, okay, I wasn't the biggest fan of the song, but all of a sudden,
right,
the drum fills in here was something that really caught my eye. Like the writing on that particular portion of the song was absolutely fantastic. What's going to happen is someone that might not necessarily like the band might be like, okay, I might listen to it because I'm kind of a little bit more of that sound, but I want to hear what this drum fill sounds like, and then just go from there.
Totally. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely, man. And that's huge, man. Thank you again, man, that's cool that you tore that all apart.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, thank you for making the song, because I really wasn't, the thing was, I really wasn't sure exactly what you were referring to as the meaning of the song. So when you brought that up, I mean, that set up a light bulb in my head. I'm like, why am I also connecting with the song another way too? And it's just like, boom, there it is. That never give up feeling that you might be battered and bruised, but you're never going to be broken.
Well, I mean, a lot of what came out with that was in terms of when you're saying the theme and like, you can get this, man. The first line of the song is, I climb my way out from the bottom. Right. So why should I be singing it, from a perspective of like, I'm super pumped. Like, let's tell this story. What do you feel like when you're suppressed, when you're diminished, and you feel like there's 1,000 anvils on you? You feel weak and smashed, right? Climb my way up in the bottom. Like you're falling apart. But then we get to that climactic, never broken. And that's kind of like the story that we want to tell. Man, you're going from being squashed and crushed and everything in life against you to literally just busting out and being like, boom. And I'm glad that you caught on to that, because that was part of that presentation too, is that I wanted to tell the story vocally of coming from that place of being just to being, up here, man, and like overcoming your adversities and, just dominating, man, like a little boy loves Godzilla. So that's, being Godzilla and stepping on the building and
oh man, that's even more understandable, especially with, again, looking back at the construction where it starts out with that softer, like more slower tone too, because when you are in that rock bottom moment, it's really hard to pick yourself back
Absolutely.
up. So it's kind of like you feel weak, but then all of a sudden when you start climbing the ladder again or climbing up them stairs back to where you need to be, all of a sudden you're just going to start realizing your progress. You're just going to start picking up. You're going to get that energy, and then that's when the song kind of picks up the pace, picks up that intensity, and picks up the emotion as well, because now, even when you're depressed, it's like you're there, but your emotions just are kind of, in a way, like they're just
absolutely. I'll
I don't want to say bland, but it just feels that way.
If you have ever hit your personal rock bottom and those of anyone that are watching or listening or, to this right now, if you've hit your personal rock bottom, then you know what this song can mean. You know what I mean? It's to people that haven't, like, there's still that little bit of like, you don't really super get it. But if you have personally hit your rock bottom and been in that spot that I know, it's like, it just hits you in a completely different level. You know what I mean? And that's what I was shooting for, because I had hit mine and I hit my personal bottom, and it was like, like, I need to be able to come out of this, man. And I tried to just convey it as best I could in the song and hope that anyone else, like that saying, if you know, I wanted to write that for people that are like, boom, this is my anthem, buddy.
Yep. And on the song, you perfectly amplify that feeling of, you're at rock bottom, and then all of a sudden you're picking yourself back up and you're just taking off, and all of a sudden you basically defeated what it had you down. You've conquered it, and you know what and you listen to the song and you get to understand that journey once again of and take a look at where you were versus where you are now, and see not only how far you come, but how successful you have been in doing that.
Yeah. And bring everybody up with you too, man. That's a big thing with me. Bring everybody with you to the promised land.
Perfectly said. And I know I want to respect your time as well. So that is the pride.
No.
I'm
good, man. I'd honestly just hate for my phone to die on you.
Oh, that's fine. I know you got another interview. I think it started supposed to be 3 minutes ago. So again, want to respect your time. Are you sure?
You're the jam, brother. Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay, man. I'm starting to feel even more excited. Holy crap. I'm giddy now.
Right. Yeah. Tell you what, when it hits 5%, we'll have to tune out.
Okay. Sounds good. So, let's jump back into, I got to see, cause I want to make sure I get the name right on this.
Okay.
Cause you came out with the Mirror Mirror EP last year. Cause you had 4 songs in there with Mirror Mirror, Love and Death, Days Go By, and Right Beside You. So what was it like releasing that as your first EP release? So you had a little more collection of songs going there. And what was it like with the reception of that? Because right now, taking a look at Spotify, when I pulled that up, your monthly listener count is at 86,000, which is incredible.
Yes, it is. To be honest, when we released Mirror Mirror, and the week that it came out to radio, we were the #1 most added active rock hard rock song. And I was in New York. I was playing, I was doing an acoustic thing at Arlene's Grocery in New York City. My manager, texted me and he was like, check your email. And I'm backstage, trying to get my stuff together. I've got the drummer for Guns N' Roses. He was in another band that night, talking to me, Frank Farrer, who, by the way, is one of the sweetest dudes ever. And he's telling me, man, I love your new song, Mirror Mirror. I love your voice. And I'm tripping because one, like I told you, I'm a huge Guns fan. And he, plays drums for, to me, one of the most legendary vocalists in rock of all time. So I'm like, your point of reference on singers, bro, is amazing. And for you to tell me that mine is awesome. So I'm having just this crazy moment, in my life of my manager's check this out, get your email. Drummer from Guns talking to me, I'm running out to get a cab so I can get to the hotel because I want to see what's happening. And I read that, Mirror Mirror was Billboard's, #1 most added rock song. I walk out onto my balcony of the hotel like I'm Ric Flair, and I'm in the middle of Times Square, woo! Just ripping one across the city, dude. People would look up, and I was stories up, and I'm just freaking out. Woo! Right? But what was crazy about it is that I did not expect that to happen because my motivation, like I told you, was serious, but I didn't think that was something that I would be able to attain. And Mirror Mirror was obviously, by the title already, a personal reflection of sorts. It was me going through my, existential crisis of what does it all mean? And, there's a lot of lines in there that relate to, to my son, and so it was the most emotional track for me that I've done to date, as far as peeling back the skin. This was my first thing that I had really done for my previous bands. And I mean, we were crazy, we're tattooed up and black latex paint and mohawks and everything and just looking crazy. And Mirror Mirror, we did this black and white video straight up like a black shirt and like pants, a white guitar. I mean, we literally was like, it was me. Like I used to, eyeliner. We were all crazy, right? I was like, dude, I'm going to like peel back every possible layer on me that I possibly can artistically and like just be completely different. It was like a snake coming out of its skin, right? So there were so many things happening with that song, and to see it reach what it did and to see how it propelled and opened the doors for us for so many things, man, like when I think about it now, like it almost makes me want to like tear up, right? Because I thought of everything that I had to go through and that I never thought that I would have a chance to do it again. Not only a chance to do it again, talking about ACL, but to be able to do it, 10 times better than I had ever done was like, dude, the greatest blessing ever. So a lot went into that song, and the follow-up Miracle as well, which was also that both of them were number 1 and number 2 most added billboards. Both of them were top 40 on Billboard. And it just opened the floodgates for where we're at now with Never Broken and Sirius XM. And to just see the support, man, is huge. But I think a huge part of that is a tiny part of it is the creativity, right? And being able to bring something different. But I think a bigger part was that I felt like this might be my last chance. So I literally just like got my heart and like wrung the towel on it. And I think that transcends to the listener on the other side. Again, for those of you that know, like, if you know, you know. So when you hear these songs, like you connect to that in an instant or you don't. And so I think it's a victory for a lot of people that can connect to that song. It's a victory for people that have supported me, through the years, man. Like every band I was in, we got to a certain level and then like, just couldn't do it, and it wasn't the band and it wasn't the work ethic and it wasn't we were on big, huge arena tours, right? Like, and we still just couldn't like get over that hump. And then to see Mirror Mirror right out of the gate just go was massive. You know what I mean? And it was extremely encouraging too. And in a lot of ways almost made me feel like, well, now I'm responsible to like keep doing it because we are clearly cultivating like a fan base right out the gate, man. And so it was the most emotional of the tracks just because it was coming from being out of the bottom to trying to come out on top, man.
And now when you're talking about kind of the whole entire story behind Mirror Mirror as well, it does make a lot more sense as given the styling, especially the instrumentation as well, because again, I'm going to jump into it with how I thought about it. And nice. I mean, it really matches kind of a different kind of style because when you start out, it had like a softer feel, like softer guitar tone. There was some like what I call electronic soundscapes going on overall.
Yeah.
And like it was over a piano as well. And it kind of continued the first verse as well. So I can kind of see where it's like, you're taking a look back at yourself and you're kind of auditing what had happened through your existential crisis and just thinking about, okay, here's where I am right now.
Take an inventory, man.
Yeah. Here's what had happened. Here's how it affected me. And here's what I am right now. And as kind of like, because the verses kind of continued in with what that intro had with a little bit more of that softer electronic kind of soundscape intro. But then the verse continued on. I liked how the drums picked up in the second half in order to kind of create like a more impactful fill that kind of led into the chorus. And I like kind of how it led into this more, emotionally charged hard rock feels to the chorus because the drumming had that slower pace, but also hit hard. The guitar work on the track did the exact same or a little bit slower pace, but also had a lower tune to it. So it just hit harder. And I really liked how that ended up because it made everything a little bit more melodic, more drawn out, more emotional. The fact that with the message, you're taking a look and auditing what had happened and you're seeing the impact that it had on you over the course of your life. So bringing in that style of instrumentation, especially in the chorus, which made it feel more melodic, drawn out, more like a hard rock ballad kind of feel, especially from what you started out with, it makes total sense to kind of taking the listener on that journey through, honestly, taking that audit of whatever happened to you.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, I'm a huge fan of being able to, any way that I can try and tell the story in the song. I think it's huge. You know what I mean? Because I want to take if someone's willing to invest 3.5 minutes on me, then I want to be able to try and take them on whatever it is that they're wanting out of that 3.5 minutes. You know what I mean? For some, it's an escape. For some, it's an emotional attachment. For some, it's like nothing at all. Like, man, I just don't want to think about anything for 3.5 minutes. So dude, pull me out of my reality. Right. And that was something, again, when it came to the reinvention of what I was trying to do as an artist, that was something that I had never done. I kind of like, I had one speed and it was go, and I had one level and it was on, man. So it's a challenge for me to be, crazy dynamic now, and I'm really pumped that you catch on to that.
Well, then there's the vocals, and I kind of want to start that out with like, here's where it takes a turn, but what if it's a turn for the good? Ooh, yeah.
That's different, man. Yeah, I'm interested.
So here's what I have for the vocals. I'm like, what we see from Norman here is something a little more consistent in your overall range, where it isn't, super all over the place. Isn't like, heavily ranging between like a lot of different things as well. But I do have to all like basically say that, it's a complete positive throughout the whole entire thing, because especially in the chorus, you have a little bit more of like this roughness to your vocal style, provides a feeling of like more pain into the song as well. And it was really needed to kind of fill in that hard rock ballad style. And when you're looking at the chorus as well, kind of taking a look at that again, you're auditing that existential crisis and you're realizing the impact it had on you. And sometimes when you realize the impact it had on you, you realize a lot of the pain that it had on you as well. And bringing that out in the vocals as well is just incredible. But there's also one where you kind of bring back that softer style for a bit, and it really works well because it stands out as the contrast of the pain of the vocals throughout the rest of the chorus. And I think it's incredibly well done on this one, because it kind of brings you back to that, audit again, but also just like, maybe everything that happened that was super painful, that didn't go very well, that kind of maybe potentially wrecked you in a way. Maybe it wasn't for the worst thing in the world. Maybe it ended up being for the better as well, and kind of taking a little bit more of that positive light into it as well.
Yeah, man. I mean, the way I see stuff now is like, if it leaves a hole, it also leaves room to fill it with new stuff. So I always try to look at the bright side, And this vocally too, I will say, man, that's why I was interested to see what you were going to do. This one was completely out of any of my comfort zone that I had ever done. And that's what I loved about it. When I went to LA to work with the producer of these 2 tracks, Sahaj, I was literally there for 30 hours tops. I remember I like dropped my little boy off at his pre-K. I hopped on a plane to LA, and it was literally like almost like back in time to pick him up from school like the next day. It was the craziest thing. And we had 2 songs that we had to lay down. And man, we didn't have the time to BS. Like, it was like, hey, good to see you, man. Great to hear. All right, let's go. Clock is ticking. And your voice, what's different for like, guitarists and drummers will get this too, is it's a muscle, man. And metal drummers that are just going crazy and double bass. Your heart may be into it, but when your legs are giving out, like, there's just nothing you can do. You're like, dude, my body is saying no. And your vocals are the same way, that it was like, when you're pushing and pushing, it's eventually just going to be like, I'm done. I don't care what timeline you guys have. You're done. Right. And man, he was pushing me. It was like probably 2 more octaves higher than steps up, that I was comfortable with singing in. I was like, no, and he's like, come on, man, we got to push it. Give me that, like, Ollie from Bring Me the Horizon, where your voice is almost about to like pop. It hurts so much, and I was interested to see how it was going to come out, because in that regard, starting from the beginning, reaching for that, I never sang anything soft. So that was like my first attempt at soft, airy, really bringing it back, to that big high chorus that was like, this is some Def Leppard stuff you got me doing, man. Like, can't get up there. So he broke the mold for me in that regard. I took chances in that regard, but I also honestly had no idea what it was going to sound like, because we had arranged the tunes for different keys. So I went into it thinking it was going to be one way, and he bamboozled me for a good reason, because he's got good producer tricks, and literally pushed me till my voice was literally, I think I might have like snapped that night. I think 5 more minutes and my voice might have been gone. And that's what you hear on the track. Like, I mean, he was like, we needed to feel that you were hurting. So the only way we had figured out was going to get me to translate that, you know, my pain, as you said, was to actually me be in pain. So dude, I would literally sing until it hurt. I would sit, and that's the moments that we would capture. I would go, okay, yeah, man, like we need to do that. This is the only way I'm going to get this across. So I literally have to do it. I mean, like I had a headache afterward. Like, I mean, I was like in the hotel, like tension headache, you know, oh my God, maybe I'll take a second. Okay, maybe a third one. Like my brain was like, and then we did it again the next day for, you know, the track Miracle. And it was the same thing. It was like, we have to feel that like gut wrenching, like, ah! And so I think that tapped into the feels for a lot of listeners, you know, a lot of people. And I'm so incredibly thankful for it. Now I can sing it like nothing, which is funny. Yeah. Like I can sing it like it's nobody's business. But, you know, a year and a half ago, it was like, I was like, this song's gonna be the death of me.
Oh boy, when I read this overall, when I wrote for this, I'm not exactly sure how you're gonna take this, because you said, right, well, you said something earlier in this podcast, which I'm taking a look at the overall, and oh God, it completely upends what you said earlier in this podcast. So overall, like for my personal taste, like I said, like I'm more of that hard rock, punk rock, metalcore kind of guy. So I like the harder stuff. Yeah. So especially with the way it started out, like for this song, it's like for me, is, you know, I'm not necessarily going to get into it as much as I would of with Never Broken. However, like take a look at the song. It has that mixture of like that hard rock ballad with some more melodic style, more emo style, and from bands like the 90s to create something like this alt rock meets hard rock ballad feel, which as the buildup of it really works well to portray what you're trying to talk about. So I do like that. However, Norman's work on the chorus stands out the most to me, as it shows that he has a great voice for hard rock and can mix different pitches and tempos with his vocals all like at the same time. Wow. And all in the same verse. So for the people that said, you know, oh, you might not have the best voice for rock because it's not like, it doesn't have like that perfect like roughness or raspiness to it, I'm calling poppycock on that, because this song says otherwise.
Boom. KP in the house. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, you know what? That's something I've always had a complex about. So thank you, man. You made my night, man, because it's going into, you know, I love to riff and I love heavy stuff, but it's just like my throat doesn't want me to. I can probably relate it to someone like Chino from the Deftones, right? Who was able to parlay that into something great for him, but he doesn't necessarily really have that same kind of like, you know, that five finger Ivan Moody, you know, that you want to hear, right? When you hear a dun 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 dun, you're ready for it. You know, Deftones were like in a whole different world like that. And that was another singer that I attached myself to a lot as far as inspiration, because I was like, I feel like Chino, man. Like I like to sing. I feel like Chester, you know, who, you know, I was able to go to recording school with, which is a whole nother story unto itself. But it was like seeing those singers evolve, man, and like watching them grow. And Chester, when he was in Grey Days, and I got to be a part of those sessions, I saw him like, you know, he was a singer, and I was like, I want to be that. Like, I don't know why it's so weird for me and why everyone is poo-pooing my feels of like, I want to riff and I want to sing. What is wrong with that? And so, man, you just made my day, bro. Thank you so much, man.
Oh, you're very welcome. And to keep that rolling as well is just, when you're talking about like, you know, like that Ivan Moody style, like especially take a look at hard rock as well. You're not going to have that, like, not everyone's going to have that like raspy, rough style voice, like with your son being a big Skill fan, like John Cooper, because I mean, you listen to him talk, and his voice is naturally just like that rough, but it works out. It works out in the scope. And then another artist that I could kind of jump to is like Adam Gontier, 3 Days Grace, Saint Sonia, because he's got this like certain roughness to him that it's very rare to find someone else that kind of has that similar style roughness to them. One person I found that actually has a kind of like a feeling like that, oddly enough, brought him up right at the beginning of the podcast, with Jonathan Norris from Kingdom Collapse, especially listening to their song Uprise. It like, I remember listening like the first time, I'm like, holy shit, this kind of sounds like a little bit of Adam Gontier in there. Damn. Right. So I kind of had that feeling, but it's just there's probably a lot of people. I'll even throw Chester Bennington in the mix. There's probably a lot of people that listen to him sing and it was like, oh no, it's now it doesn't sound right. It's too hard. It's not clean enough. Oh, it's not going to work out. Then all of a sudden, I'm using Chester as an example. It's when you're looking at like that top tier echelon of the most like unmatched influential vocals in rock music. If there's like any that you can, like, I don't think anyone's ever going to match anymore. I can think of 3. I can think of Freddie Mercury, David Draymond from Disturbed, and Chester Bennington. Like no one's ever going to match that kind of style ever again. And it's incredible that we have them and we have their music.
Absolutely, man. And like, that's just, that's the trail that I want to follow too, man. I was like, well, I'm going to roll the dice. And again, I'm 50-50 on it anyways. So I might as well be 50-50 on doing it my way. And maybe I'll get a little tiny like piece of that in the world for myself, and just leave, inspire someone else to be like, yeah, man, do your thing. Like, why do you want to be a second rate version of someone else? Be a first rate you?
Yeah, and even like taking a look, I'm gonna bring up them again. It's like we'll take a look at like Freddie Mercury with that like operatic style vocal range that he had. I mean, he even did an opera song and it was incredible. So just taking a look at that, it's just, I mean, initially you're probably not thinking, especially in the 70s, this guy probably doesn't have like a voice for rock music, especially around the time when like Led Zeppelin's popping off and Black Sabbath is big. It's just, it doesn't fit, but all of a sudden it becomes like the most well-known vocalist of all time, especially in rock and metal. Then go to metal as well with David Draymond. He's got this like prophetic and like preacher kind of vocal to him. And I haven't heard anything like that ever. Like, again, I don't think anyone's going to end up matching that. Oh, there goes my camera. And I just, way to go,
but
me.
I got to see you with Jared Leto, so that's dope.
Yeah, so there's the picture. Can I get it back going again? I guess maybe not. I don't know. Oh, of course. I said wacky things were going to happen, and wacky things did happen.
Boom. Here we are, man. But you know what? I got to get to the next one anyways, dude. And I want to thank you, man, for your time, dude. You have made my day. I had loved spending time with you, and I think we need to do this again, dude. Like, for real.
Oh, we will definitely do this again. Especially one thing that I think we could easily do is if you're gonna do that. If you and King Collapse and then what was the other band that you were talking about earlier?
Relent.
If you guys do that whole entire if you guys do that live stream show, what we could do is we could do a podcast, because I know you'd be down for. I can easily get Jonathan Norris in on it as well, and if I end up talking to guys from Relent as well, I'm pretty sure we could do like a 4-screen podcast. I've done them before, and just talk about the whole entire thing, talk about music, just geek out, have a great time. But before you go, one last thing.
Absolutely, brother. Anything for you.
Where can everyone find your stuff online, just so that they can hear it here, but then I got a little thing after that to say, because I'll make it easy on them.
On the black market. No, I'm just kidding. Matt, wherever you can find digital music, any digital music retailer at this point, because there's some out there that I don't even know what it is, but it's out there. But, obviously, the big ones, man, Spotify, Apple Music, all that kind of stuff. You can check us out at estrangedasangels.com. Our socials are everywhere at estrangedasangels for Instagram, estrangedasangels for Facebook. The only one that's different, and it drives my OCD crazy, is a Twitter. We are at angels_strange, because someone out there has the handle at estrangedasangels, and they haven't touched it in years. And I don't even think if we sent them a message, they would read it. That's how crazy that is. So it's a real pain in the butt. But other than that, man, just look for it and we'll be there. And I'm so incredibly thankful for anyone that does take the time and anyone that supported. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you guys know me. You guys know I say this a lot. I studied econ when I was in college. I know how consumers work. I know that convenience is key. So instead of actually just, making it like, instead of, I'm going to go on social and go online and like try and search this stuff up. How about this? Especially if you're watching the video or listening to the podcast, just look at the description. Just click on the links. They're all going to be there for the website, socials, music. If I can find merch for these guys, it's going to be in there. So you guys can get all of your Strangers Angels fix right there. All it is a click or a tap away. I'm making this as easy as hell on you guys. You have no excuse.
I love that, man.
Alrighty, and we'll end with that. So Norman, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Listen to A Strange as Angels, and because, this feels like this is definitely going to end up, probably into a part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at some point down the line. This ain't goodbye. This is going to be a good old see ya.
Yeah, brother. Thank you, man.
You're welcome. Take care.
You too, buddy. Peace.
Whoa, folks. That was my interview with Norman from As Strange as Angels. And my God, that was fun as all hell. I'm so thankful for Norman, who gave me a little bit extra time than he had. And it was incredible. We really got to go into Mirror Mirror that I didn't think we were going to get to, which is absolutely amazing. And dude's got a great voice. I love the sound from As Strange as Angels. And please listen to all their stuff that we talked about. Please follow them on all their socials and listen to music, everything in the description below. And I really hope you enjoyed hearing his inspiration that his son has brought him and what it's like to be a dad in rock music today. So this was an incredible episode. I was not expecting anything like this, but I'm so happy it happened. So I cannot wait to see what As Strange as Angels does in the future. On top of that, I cannot wait to see what happens with this potential like huge thing with the band Relent and of course our friends at Kingdom Collapse. If something like that happens, I will try and get Relent on the podcast as well. And potentially if that does happen, I will try and get all three bands together and we can talk about this all, because now for the Strange as Angels, friends with Kingdom Collapse, let's get Relent as well. So on that note, thank you guys for listening. This is the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by My Song They Rock 2000 to today. That's it for me. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single episode with a big, healthy, and hearty see ya!